Clear prop.
Star 73, Yankee number 2, following twin traffic, 3 mile final, clear Sutton. 1 Charlie Bravo, exit in runway 25, going 4 mile final.
This is Behind the Prop with United Flight Systems owner and licensed pilot Bobby Doss and his co-host, Major Airline Captain and designated pilot examiner Wally Mulhern. Now let's go Behind the Prop.
What's up, Wally?
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
I am fantastic. This week, we're going to talk about a couple things, but the biggest part of the conversation is going to be about special VFR. I think that we all hear about it. We all understand it when we probably take a check ride or a written exam. We understand the rules behind it. But I personally didn't really know how to implement it from a practicality standpoint and how I would use it probably 30 days after my check ride. And this is a time of year, specifically in Houston, Texas, that it could become a friend of ours to maybe get out of the field that we're in today and off into the practice area and other places. So we're going to talk about special VFR, and then we're going to talk a little bit about call signs. I think you had a few things happen on check rides recently that we wanted to share with the listeners and make sure they knew what we were thinking about as it relates to call signs.
Yeah, just getting into special VFR. Basically, it's a way to skirt the rules a little bit, if you will. I don't know if that's the right way to say that or not, but it is legal, so I guess you're not really skirting the rules. But basic VFR is 1003. In my flying career, I think I've used special VFR one time. And I don't really remember the circumstances, but I believe it was probably a situation where we taxied out and, the weather was maybe 3,000 and 3 miles visibility. And we got to the end of the runway, and they're calling the visibility 2.5 miles. The field just went IFR, state your intentions, is what we got from tower. And we wanted to get out in the practice area. It was just a condition that we believed was kind of a transient condition. Maybe there was a fire and smoke had moved in and limited visibility a little bit. So we asked for a special VFR. We were granted it, and we were able to leave the airport. Probably not something that you should use regularly unless, there could be situations where you might be a pipeline patrol pilot and you're flying down at 500 feet anyway, and the weather is 1,000 broken. That might be a situation where you can get out of the airport that you're taking off from. A special VFR is something that student pilots are not authorized to use. So you student pilots, this is just something that's down the road for you when you get your private pilot certificate. But it's not something you should use. And I don't feel, and this is my opinion, I don't feel like special VFR is something that you should really count on or plan on. It's kind of a little tool that you have, kind of an emergency plan, a contingency plan.
Yeah, I think that the case where I may use it would be where I'm on the field, I'm about to take off, maybe I'm going to Austin to pick up my daughter. It's VFR the whole way there. It's in the morning, maybe the dew point and temperature are pretty close, and as the temperature starts to change, maybe the visibility gets a little less or the ceiling gets a little less, and I'm at the end of the runway and they tell me the airport goes IFR. While I'm an IFR rated pilot and current pilot, I could go back and file a flight plan, but that's going to take me a bunch of time. They're not going to give it to me right there at the end of the runway if I ask them for it. But what I do have in my disposal, as you said, more like a tool in your tool bag, is to say, hey, could I be cleared out special VFR? And they're going to give that to me. I'm assuming 99.9% of the time.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get out in the air and probably back to those VFR conditions really, really quick.
Right.
And then if I need to, maybe get a pop-up clearance or something else. But it's something that I don't know that I would use if I wasn't an instrument pilot. You're you are flirting with instrument conditions, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer VFR, and all the things that I think about as it relates to my personal minimums with instrument stuff is what I would be thinking about with special VFR too. What if I had an engine problem and I had this low visibility? Well, I'd want to make sure I could get back to the airport for sure. Again, being able to see the ground. So if it's 1,000 feet, I'd probably feel comfortable with that because I could scoot around here at 800 feet and be safe. There's nothing that I'm going to hit. But if it was less than that, I would not take off for sure, special VFR. And I'd have to have a really good idea, almost like you said, smoke blowing through, that it was going to be temporary or that I was only going to be in it for seconds.
Right.
And not something for an extended period of time for sure, because I'm assuming I wouldn't set up my equipment like I would for an IFR flight. I wouldn't have everything programmed the way I'd want it to be programmed. This would be a tool to get me to get airborne and get on the road, quote unquote, on the road to where I wanted to go. It's all in 91-157 is where this stuff's at, and then there's some stuff in the AIM as well, maybe a condensed version in the AIM under 4-4-6. But there's a lot more rules to it than what we've just talked about from a standpoint of being at the end of the runway. Obviously, the airports have to support it or have to approve it, right? So
right.
I do have to get the clearance from ATC. If I'm not at a towered airport, I would have to call Flight Service Center and ask them to help me get that clearance from ATC. They can't give it themselves, but they'll help me with ATC.
Right.
I might call Center myself on the radio and ask for it, or on the phone. But I'm going to have that from air traffic control. And then we live in Houston. There's a few airports that don't allow it, right? So if you look in the Appendix D of 91, there's some clear rules where it's not allowed, and one of those happens to be Bush Intercontinental Airport. So I can't request special VFR in and out of there. That's Appendix D, Section 3, and it clearly calls out that airport. What about night, Wally? What about the rules as it relates to special VFR at night?
Yeah, special VFR at night, you have to be instrument rated to request it. And again, a special VFR is not something that air traffic control is going to offer. It is specifically something that you as the pilot will have to request. But special VFR at night, you are required to have an instrument rating to do that. I would have to think long and hard about special VFR at night. I think I don't know the advantages of that. I think if it were that case, I would just file IFR right then. And now with the technology that most of us have at our disposal, it's really not even a case probably of going back. I mean, you could probably file using your EFB if you have connectivity. You could probably file or use your phone and file fairly easily. But I would think really long and hard about filing for asking for special VFR at night.
Yeah, the only reason I could possibly imagine doing it at night would just to be moving aircraft, but again, it would have to be very specific based on the current weather and the situations that I would be fondly aware of. So, in preparing for this show, I did a lot of research, and while this isn't a massive topic, it's one that I don't think we all understand very well, and a lot of this has to do with I think a lot of what I read had to do with coastal type airports, right? So something that we would see cold water, warm air, fog, or a small layer that was, you think Monterey. If you've ever been to Monterey, you might not have 3 feet of visibility in some spots, but literally a mile away, it's crystal clear, right? So it's just the cold air over the water, or the warm air over the water that is creating that fog. Now, I'm not saying I'd take off in fog, of course, but there may be some small marine layer that is at 1,000 feet that I know as soon as I get 4 miles from the airport that it's going to be the best VFR conditions in the world. And I might take that on at night, but it would be very specific because I knew that it was going to be crystal clear. It was not something that I would take any chances on. If there were snow showers in the area and I thought I was going to try and dodge snow showers at night, that just makes absolutely no sense because we're talking freezing and visibility and everything else that's bad you don't want in a tin can airplane that we might be flying around here.
Yeah.
You said you've only used it once. I've never used it, and I can only think of a few circumstances where I might use it. I know that my Chiefs used it a couple times on, call it 1,500-foot days where he needed a test flying aircraft that I was thinking about buying. He did a couple laps in the pattern in that, and I don't see any risk or harm in doing that on a benign day that just had a 1,500-foot ceiling. You're not going to go fly the pattern like that on a regular basis, but to get a couple laps in a plane that you're wanting to buy, I don't see the harm in that. Interested in understanding if our listeners have ever used special VFR in those circumstances. If you have a story to tell us where it went well, maybe where it didn't go so well, or a special VFR clearance turned quickly into an IFR clearance, shoot us a note either via social media or to our email addresses, Bobby@BehindTheProp.com or Wally@BehindTheProp.com, and let us know your special VFR situation and story. Make sure you are being safe when you take this stuff on, because that could turn dangerous really, really quick. So with that, Wally, let's jump into our call sign conversation. You've had some interesting rides lately, I'll say, from a check ride perspective. Let's talk a little bit about call signs and some guidance that we want to share.
Yeah, this is turned into a crusade of mine, if you will. Little bit of a pet peeve of mine. One thing that I have noticed, especially at this airport, is and a lot of it is prompted by ATC here, and it actually doesn't follow the guidance that's in the AIM. Let's talk about the AIM. What is the AIM? The AIM is non-regulatory in nature. So the AIM is kind of good to do stuff. You know, it's stuff that you should do. It doesn't say you shall do it, but you should do it. And one thing that I'm hearing a lot of is applicants, when they use the call sign of the airplane, they'll say, November 123 Bravo Charlie. And what are we telling ATC by telling them our call sign is November 123 Bravo Charlie? We're telling them that we are a U.S. registered airplane. That's all we're telling them. And, of course, the call sign. But if you read in the AIM in Chapter 4, or actually Chapter 2, Radio Communication Phraseology, 424 under aircraft call signs, and I'm quoting from the AIM, it says civil aircraft pilots should state the aircraft type, model, or manufacturer's name, followed by the digits, letters of the registration number. When the aircraft manufacturer's name or model is stated, the prefix N is dropped, e.g. Aztec 2464 Alpha. So again, this says should. It doesn't say shall, it says should. So instead of November 123 Bravo Charlie, we should call ourselves Skylane 123 Bravo Charlie. Or according to this, you could call yourself Cessna 123 Bravo Charlie. Well, what does that do? It does a couple things. First of all, it lets other airplanes know what type of airplane we are. So if they're looking for us, they know what to look for. I think most of us know that a Skylane looks different from a Warrior. Okay, you're looking for a high-wing airplane versus a low-wing airplane. If you're talking ATC, it gives ATC a little bit of an idea of the performance capabilities of the airplane. So if he hears Skylane 123 Bravo Charlie, call in, and you're 15 miles out, and then Baron 456 Bravo Charlie calls in, the same distance out from a different direction. He knows a Baron goes faster than a Skylane, and so he's going to sequence that Baron in first, most likely. But again, and especially at a non-controlled airport, when you're in the pattern at a non-controlled airport and you're reporting your position, November 123 Bravo Charlie on a left downwind runway 36, people looking for airplanes, they see an airplane up there and they think it's you, and it might not be you. So, if you can say the aircraft type, it just helps everybody else. And I mean, that's basically what the AIM says to do. And the other thing is, the more that we can say on the radio with less, the better. And so when you go into another airport and you use November 123 Bravo Charlie, probably one of the first things air traffic control at that other airport is going to say, state your aircraft type. So you're just causing a little bit more chatter on the radio that just really doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I think early on I remember sitting in the cockpit trying to take all this stuff in, and my instructor saying we're a Skyhawk. And looking back now, knowing what I know now, that I don't remember I didn't know what a Skyhawk was. And it seems silly because everyone now knows everyone listening to this show probably knows what a Skyhawk is, but I didn't know what a Skyhawk was. And I kept, we changed tail numbers and I would say, are we still in a Skyhawk? Because I'm not really sure. But of course, all the 172s, if you say Skyhawk, that's probably going to put you in the same bucket. And they all were branded. I think they all are branded Skyhawk. But I fly a Skylane now, so I'm used to saying Skylane 149er uniform as I go by my flying, and it's a big difference. You're talking 40 knots probably over the ground that you're doing different speeds. If you're a Skylane coming up behind and they might see your airspeeds on the radar, but not every airport has radar, and they might not be able to see your overtake. But I think it's important now for me to say Skylane versus Cessna. I would also say I've had the opportunity to fly some bigger, faster jets and twin-engine aircraft. There are Cessna jets, so Cessna by itself doesn't necessarily articulate it. So you don't have to be a knower of all models and types, but when we had ATC on here, they told us they have a little cheat sheet that they can plug in a type BE95, and that BE95 spits back some performance characteristics. That's what our twin is. And if you say that over the radio, a lot of people might not know what that is, and ATC has the ability to kind of get that quick profile pulled up, know probably that the ground speed average is 145, 150, and gives them some of that performance information they need to make some of those decisions.
Yeah and I think one problem we have with this airport, David Wayne Hook's airport here in Houston, I think the controllers here, they know the airplanes. They know where the airplanes live, and they know what type airplane they are. They can hear 123 Bravo Charlie, and they know what type airplane it is because they work that especially the flight school airplanes. They work the airplane several times in a given day.
Sure.
So they know it's a 172 or a Skylane or whatever it happens to be. So you can get away with it. We can get away with I don't know if saying bad technique is the right word, or the right phrase, but
I'd say it's a little bit of complacency because
Yeah.
we're just all used to each other. We all
Yeah.
talk to each other all the time. It's not intended, but there's a little bit of expectation bias and all those things that go on. I did my night currency recently, and I've been known to fly here for many, many years now, and in similar aircraft. And they actually, when I exited the runway, they asked where I parked, and I almost started laughing because they know where I park, and I don't know why all of a sudden and it was somebody I know that I've talked to thousands of times, but I think they were trying to crack some of that expectation bias and make sure that I might not be going to the real FBO or a different FBO. I was going back to United. So it was an interesting challenge from them to ask me where I was going because I know they know, and I didn't have to tell them. They knew where I was headed, right?
Right.
That's a for sure thing. I think we had Pat on a long time ago, and you mentioned it's not even hinted somewhere, but if there's something else distinguishing that you could tell in a pattern to people, it would be informative. He used to have a bright yellow 150 that he flew for the AOPA, and he called it Woodstock. And he would say, if he was in the pattern, he would say yellow Cessna. And that's helpful, because what if there are 5 aircraft in the pattern, and he wanted to make sure that they didn't get him confused. If he was on final, that they saw him as the yellow Cessna.
Right.
And I think you'd have to have something pretty distinguishing like that.
Yeah.
But it would help. You got to think it's going to help if you're in close proximity with one another.
Yeah, I agree. I'm beginning to hear some people using that Blue Skyhawk 123 Bravo Charlie left downwind. Again, I haven't seen this written anywhere, but I don't think anybody, if anybody thinks it's a bad idea, I'd be interested to hear your take on it. The bottom line is we just want to communicate, especially at a non-controlled airport. We want to communicate with each other and make ourselves seen.
Yeah, and we've talked about this section before, but I love the part at the very end of this section, 4-2-4 in the AIM. It's actually section C. It talks about student pilots' radio identification. And when we're driving in cars, there's normally a big yellow sticker on the back that says student driver, but in the aircraft that we fly, there is no big sticker. But it is very, very helpful for ATC, for other aircraft. We all want to help you be successful when you're learning how to fly, and it is to your huge advantage to call out that you are a student pilot. And the AIM recommends that you say something to the effect of Daytona Tower Fleet Wing 1234 student pilot. And that is going to designate that you are probably needing a little bit more help. You probably need things to come just a little slower, and you might need a little bit more time in the pattern. And if there's multiple runways, make sure you get the biggest one every time. It's only going to provide you a little bit of help and protection, so don't hesitate to use it. You don't have to use it on every call, but I think once you designate it, the ATC guys and girls are supposed to pass it along as they hand you off if you're on flight following. It's just going to help everybody, help you be successful, and it can't hurt. So take advantage of that. As the owner of a flight school that owns 14 planes that are flown by students that don't have ratings, please say student pilot. We're all going to get help.
Yeah, and when all else fails, just use plain language. I mean, it is perfectly fine to say, Hooks Tower 123 Bravo Charlie, I think I'm north of the airport. I'm confused. Can you help? That's permissible. And you're going to hear everybody else on the radio, you're not going to hear them, but everybody's going to listen to that, and they're going to go, okay, somebody's in trouble out there. We're all on the same page here.
Yep.
We really are. Everybody's going to be rooting for you, and everybody's going to shut up, and they're going to let you basically have that radio.
No doubt, for sure. So 2 topics today, a little shorter show than normal, but special VFR. When in doubt, I would say skip it, but if you can use it and put it in your tool bag, it's a good one to have at your disposal. Make sure your IFR current and proficient if you do it, and take it on at nighttime. As it relates to call signs, please use your model number. Give some indication to help pilots around you and ATC know what kind of performance characteristics you have. And omit that N. It doesn't do anything but tell us that you're registered in the U.S. And as always, keep those things in mind. Fly safe and stay behind the prop.
Thanks for checking out the Behind the Prop podcast. Be sure to click subscribe and check us out online at BehindTheProp.com. Behind the Prop is recorded in Houston, Texas. Creator and host is Bobby Doss. Co-host is Wally Mulhern. The show is for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to replace actual flight instruction. Thanks for listening, and remember, fly safe.